Hi, I'm Connie Sokol, a national speaker, best-selling author, program founder, and mother of 7, and loving it. I'm reaching and teaching 1 million listeners to live a purposeful, organized, and joyful life. You can too, so let's go.
Welcome. I'm so excited to have you join us today for our first ever podcast episode of Money Mindset Mentors, because you can. What can you do? You can do so much with the money that you have been given and also the resources, and be able to leverage them so you can increase abundance for yourself, your family, and others. That's what we want to talk about today. And you notice we are all mom ants. So we're going to go around and kind of introduce everybody, and just know that this is kind of kitchen table conversation. We want you to feel comfortable. Why? Because often money is such a hot bud topic. It's just kind of like this, ooh, I don't want to talk about it. And is it okay for women to talk about it? Yes, yes, and yes. And the more that we're able to talk about how we can use it wisely, the more that we can help one another in synergizing and making all those good things happen using this tool. So let's go around. I'm going to introduce you to each of these women. First and foremost, we have Amanda Powell, and she is joining us from her mobile office, her car. I thought this is so how we roll, right? Literally, she is in California right now, and she is joining us from there and her car. She is a financial coach with Dave Ramsey. She is a program specialist for the school district in California. And she also is an entrepreneur, and she has her own company called Break the Mold, helping kids read. And she loves teaching women about how to be able to get your budget in shape, being able to find that extra money and use it and leverage it for good. So that is Amanda. Amanda, you want to wave so everybody knows that's Amanda? All right, next is Amy. Amy, you want to wave so everybody knows which one you are? Yes. Amy, she's a realtor and a real estate investor since 2006. She has over 50 properties, and they manage over 300 units. And her passion is helping women learn how to do real estate investment and manage those properties once you have them. And she is an absolute delight to work with. I personally worked with her and just love it and love her. And we have Rachel. Oh, and also Amanda, I'm so sorry. Amanda is a mom of 4 and a grandma, and Amy is a mother of 2. So we are all, like I said, mom ants. Rachel, give a little wave. Rachel is an entrepreneur, a real estate investor since 2010, and she focuses on the short-term rentals and unique properties such as Airbnb, motels, and even retail. They just acquired a cookie company, so we are now best friends with Rachel. So fun. She is a mom of 6, and she loves to teach and motivate others, especially women, but also her family, and teaching them how to use these same investing tools so that they can move forward in increasing their abundance as well. So we are thrilled to be with you today and to be able to give you some financial takeaways. At any time, if you have any questions, go ahead and post them below, and we can either answer them today or we can answer them in future podcasts. We're going to be doing this every week for a short period of time. We're going to be doing every Thursday, 11 a.m. MST. So join us here and we can answer your questions. All right, let's get started. Like I said, it can be kind of this hot topic. And I think some of that comes from back in our childhood or college days or high school or whatever. We have a sort of a negative money story. Everybody had that. You had some experience that was kind of that, you didn't have money, your card got declined, your parents were poor, and you didn't have the things that the neighbor kids had. We all have this sort of a negative money story. So I'd love to go around and just very quickly just share what was a pivotal moment that was a hard thing for money for you in an earlier day. Who would like to go first?
I'm happy to.
All right, Rachel, and then Amy, and then Amanda. All right, Rachel.
It's cool that we all just want to jump in and talk. So I guess, this is going to be great. When you were talking about like having a card declined, that I can totally relate to that. Growing up, of course, one other thing you said is your parents not having much. So that's what I grew up in. I remember using my parents' credit card to go buy something. I was with friends and they were like, sure, just take this and go buy it. And it got declined. I was so embarrassed. I didn't know what to do. And I still have PTSD to this day. To this day. I mean, that was a long time ago because I'm kind of old now. And it really put in my mind this negative just thought about like, oh no, we don't have enough. Oh no, where's this going to come from? Oh no, oh no, oh no. And as I got married and things like that, I wanted to change that mindset. And so that for me is kind of where this all started.
Oh, I love that. And I think so many of us can relate to that. That's the moment that you realize scarcity. Like there may not be enough. And even from those people, and it's not a diss to our families, they were doing the best they could. But you look at that and you go, as a child, you look at parents and say, you should be, I should be able to look to you to do X, Y, and Z. And you don't have this concept of there's a cap on it. And there could not be enough. And I wouldn't know about it. What else don't I know? So I love that there's that, oh no. I love that moment that you're like, oh no. All right, Amy, what about you?
So sounds like we probably all have very similar experiences. I grew up very, very poor as well. My family was very, very frugal. My mom made us clothing from the time that I was can remember all the way up until junior high school. I remember being in junior high school and just being mortified that I had to go to school in homemade clothing. And so as I got older, I started just developing a drive I wanted better and more and different things. And so that is where mine came from. I felt like my mom and dad never talked about money. I was never taught anything about money from my parents either. And so it was kind of just this big unknown, nobody, they talk about it and I guess we're okay every month, but we don't know that. And there's, always rice and we make wheat pancakes for breakfast and you know what I mean? So kind of growing up in that, this is just what it is. And that's how it's always going to be for me. I just had a drive and desire to have a little bit better for me and my family. It was very scary for me to get married as a young girl that was one of my biggest fears to get married. Was I just felt like, well, it's that scarcity mindset, right? There's just never enough money. So then if we get married and there's two of us, then what happens? You know what I mean? I can take care of myself. I know my budget now. I was getting into that age where I was having to pay for everything myself at that point anyway. But you just get into those mindsets where you're like, is this everything that it should be, or there should be more? And so that kind of developed that drive for me to just, I wanted more. I knew that there could be more and I wanted more, and I wanted more for the people that surrounded me, whether that turned out to be my husband and, now my children. And you just want to do better. So.
Oh my gosh, that is so spot on. And that feel of, I love that you mentioned we didn't talk about it. That was so back in the day as well.
It was not talked about.
You just don't talk. There were certain subjects.
Don't talk about it.
And you didn't ever ask, how are we doing?
Yeah, you don't ask. You don't ask. I don't think my mom ever asked. I don't think my mom ever talked to my dad. I mean, I don't know how they manage finances. I literally never heard them talk about finances to each other, ever.
And you kind of get thrown out, right?
Yeah.
18, you're like, yay, go balance your checkbook.
What the heck? They did force us. I think that probably that being the way that they were, right? Forced me to take that responsibility, because at a very young age, I got my first job mowing lawns when I was 12, because I was like, I have to pay for my own stuff, if I want, it's your responsibility to pay for these portions of whatever. And as I got older, to drive and have gas money, and I had to buy my own car, and you know what I mean? All of the things. And so that definitely plays into how my life progressed. So I'm grateful certainly for that, but it does beg to, leaves you thinking, is there more than this? Is there a better way?
A better way. And I think that's what's beautiful. Our families pass the baton and we take it and we say, what do we get to do with it? Right? We're going to do it a little bit differently. And I hope that for my own kids, that they'll take it and go, you know what? We're going to do it even better. We're going to do it differently.
Yeah.
When we were talking about that with the, paying for stuff early. I mean, you pay for school clothes or things like that. And nowadays, kids don't often have to do that in a certain level. I've noticed that that's less and less. And I was reading that the owner of JCPenney had his son started paying for his own stuff at 8. I'm like, okay, now there can be extremes here, in my opinion. So we will address this in future episodes of how to talk about money with your kids and how to establish a healthy money economy in your home and what that can look like for you. Which brings us to sweet Amanda, who that's her wheelhouse. Amanda, tell us about your possible negative money story that, kind of stuck in there.
Yeah. First of all, I want to say, like, it is so good to know that I'm among friends. Like, as I hear each of your stories, I am like, oh my gosh, I've been there. Had my debit card declined, right? I've been there in that moment where I'm like, shoot, like, is there enough? Like, I've been there. And I also remember the moment when I went, I can't count on money, right? Like, that was me. Like, I was like, swipe my card. It's not there. I can't count on it. And then I even got to a space where, I don't know about you guys, but it was like, if you don't look, right? If you don't look, then you just don't know, right?
If I don't check, I'll have money in there in the belt. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just not going to check my account. I'm just not going to balance my checkbook, because then I don't have to assess that situation. When in reality, like, my finances was a train that had derailed big time, right? And I mean, like, not only was the train off the track, but the track was destroyed and needed to be fixed. So those were my moments. I remember in particular one when I checked my account. I was getting ready to go on a trip, and I was packing my suitcase to go. And I thought, you know what? I paid all my bills. I'm just going to check my account, see how much money I get to have to spend on this trip. And I checked my account, and the amount read $68. And my heart just dropped. It went straight through my gut and landed in my feet. Like, it didn't even stop in the stomach. It was like, whoo, right? And I had to make a decision. I remember sitting down and I was like, okay, I can cancel my trip, and that will save me some money. And I started tallying everything up, right? The plane ticket, the event cost, the rental car, the motel rooms, the food. I started tallying it up, and I was like, that's $4,000. Like, I should just cancel, right? But yet I knew I needed to move forward. And it was such a pivotal moment for me when I went, I never want to be here again. And I realized at that moment I had a damaged relationship with money, and I needed to fix that.
I love that phrase that you use, a relationship with money, because it is these tools, these resources that we've been given. And if we can learn how to use a good tool and use it for its intended purpose and use it wisely, then suddenly everything's different. I remember years ago, early married, we were trying to build cabinets, and all we had was like this little tiny, I don't even know the name of the saw. It's like a jigsaw. That's all we had. It was like the most ridiculous thing, but you're just trying to, but when you get a chop saw, you get all these other tools. It's like butter. If you're making bread and you've got, you're trying to do it all by hand, but then you've got a KitchenAid and you're like, or a Bosch, like, it grinds the wheat, it does the kneading, it practically has a little man come out and put it in the oven for you, right? It's like fantastic. It makes it such a different experience. And I think we owe that to not just to ourselves, but our children, to be able to get beyond those money stories and not carry it, because what comes with it is a measure of shame, a measure of disappointment, or scarcity mentality, or of fear of what can happen and I'm going to be acted upon, instead of saying, I can act on this. I can do something about this. And for those, we're faith-based here, and we really know that when you involve the divine aspect, when you involve scripture, when you involve prayer, when you involve that faith element, that just is a catalyst for using this tool, just like every other tool. But money is a particular tool in my mind, in the sense that it is such a driver in all of our societies. And if we can change the story on that, if we can learn how to use this tool and learn it more effectively, our lives are changed, and the lives of all the people that we interact with and all that we want to help are changed as well. That's a powerful tool. So since we're on that vein, let's go ahead and beautifully transition into what can we do differently? How can we gain that money wisdom? How can we change that money story so that it is money wisdom and it is money working for us as it's supposed to be? And I remember a gal at one of our retreats talking about how money wants to be used and used for good. And I feel that, like, everything that God has given us is this beautiful resource. And if we take it and use it for good, I feel like this is a wise stewardship. Like, there's a joy, an eternal kind of joy that comes from using all resources that God has given us in order to move things forward for Him. So let's go around. And again, I love it. You guys are clamoring. Who would like to go first to share their money tip? And I would love when you shared the tip, kind of the genesis of why that was a really helpful, useful money tip for you.
We should start with Rachel since you started last time. We can
Let's
keep
do
the
it.
order the same.
Rachel.
I volunteer Amanda to go first. After.
Woo! I will do that. Okay. So for me, repeat the question again, Connie.
What is the new money story? Like, what was one of those tips that you're like, that helps me move forward, and I want to share this one with you? It's money wisdom.
So it was when I went, something needs to change. And I went to that event. I went forward and I went to that event. And the same lady who shared with Connie that money has a purpose shared with me. Like, Janae Thompson is absolutely so amazing and holds a special place in my heart, because she started to help me understand and see that money is a resource, and it is sent by the source, right? Which is our Heavenly Father. And it has an intended purpose, which is to do good. And so for me, I started to realize that I needed to change that relationship. It was damaged and I needed to repair it. But before I could repair it, I needed to understand exactly what was damaged. So the best tip that I have that I did was I took out a piece of paper and I wrote down my ideal relationship with money. What did I want that to look like? What did I want it to feel like when I was out there, right? Spending money or helping people. What did I want that to look like? What did I want it to look like when I looked in my bank account, right? Because I no longer wanted to avoid that. I wanted to look at that. I wanted to check in. I wanted to know where it was. I wanted to boss my money. And I wanted to be able to boss it in a way that would grow, right? That the money would grow. So for me, that's what I started to do. I wrote down what ideally this would look like for me. And then I wrote down what's holding me back. So I've got this list of ideal, and then I've got this what's holding me back. And what I noticed was a common pattern through all of my what was holding me back. And it took me all the way down to scarcity. I honestly really believed that there was not enough money to go around. I honestly believed that some people got money and other people didn't, and that it was just your lot in life, right? I honestly believed that. And I had to go all the way back down and figure out what my money block was before I could ever even start to repair that relationship.
I love that. I would even call that root reason. Get down to the money root reason so you can figure out what it is that's kind of threading through and poisoning everything else that you're experiencing, or that your perspective. I love that activity. So good. Thank you so much. And what was the outcome when you started practicing that?
Oh my word. It led me first. So it's been amazing. Once I started doing this, I realized that money did have a purpose. And so I wanted to understand the divine role of money. So I went right to the scriptures and I read every single scripture on money or abundance. And then I went to conference talks and I read every single thing on abundance, because I wanted to get it from the primary source of my Heavenly Father first. I wanted to understand God's law of abundance. And so I went there. That led me to, okay, I need to take control of my money. Together with God's law of abundance and through partnering with Him, I was able to eliminate $39,000 in debt within a year. Just eliminate it. It was incredible. From there, I multiplied my bank account. So I have now multiplied my bank account to where I'm just like, okay, I got to start being generous with my funds. So my boys have been off of their mission now for like a month. And I'm still paying for missionaries. I'm still paying for 2 missionaries because I've just decided that is something that I can do for other families. I can continue to pay that forward. So I've absolutely loved that. And then it has also allowed me to look at how my money can work for me. So I've started to find that there are so many ways to make money. So when you're thinking, oh, I just need extra money, there is a way to do that. And I have tapped into that. And now I have created passive income that comes to me, and I'm not really doing anything for it. It's just finding its way to me, which is amazing.
I love it. And I love it that it's related to your helping kids read and things like that. So it's related to the passion that you have and the things that you want to fulfill, which is so important that we connect the two. I love it. All right, Amy, let's do you, and then we'll have Rachel.
So mine is really going to be pretty similar, I think, to Amanda. It just is a little different take on it. So for me, my big moment was probably after we had, I think we had 3 rental properties at that point, and then we bought the house that we're in currently, and had just felt like this was going to be a home that we were going to stay in for a long time. And I had read a book at that point, and it was Kawasaki's book, and it was a paradigm shift for me. I learned that I felt like at that point we had made a huge mistake buying this house. I was like, oh my gosh, we have to sell this house and we have to move again, and we need to buy more rentals. Like, this is a huge deal. It's working. It's like a big deal for us, because for us, we were pretty good with our budget beforehand. My husband and I were both nurses for a long time. And so we were both raised kind of the same. And so we both had the same fears when we were married. And so we didn't want those budget things to happen to us as a young family. And so we were very, very frugal from the beginning. And then as we moved around and bought homes and rented them out, we kind of figured out that it was going to work for us. So I would say, like, a big takeaway for us is, so we were in this situation, right, where we bought this house and we liked it. And my husband was like, I'm not moving. I'm like, we have to sell this house. We have to go, like, buy a lot more little rentals and just keep moving until we have, like, a bigger portfolio. And he's like, no, I'm not doing that. That's crazy. And I was like, okay, so there has to be a different way, right? Like, you have to figure out a different way to do what you want to do. And so, like Amanda was saying, you kind of have to, figure out what you want it to look like, right? So we had sat down and did, like, a 5-year, we had put together a 5-year plan. And so I feel like that's a huge motivating factor right there, to be able to be very, very clear on what you want your life to look like. I feel like that really changed for us, like a lot of our pathway. Like, we really got clear on what we really wanted and, like, how we were going to do it. So we put together a budget. So we said, okay, this is how we want it to look. How are we going to get there? So we put together ourselves a little, budget and a plan. And it was very, very strict, and it was pretty hard, to be honest, like those first few years. But I would say that my big takeaway is to maybe just keep your mind open, because I know there's so many women with so many different situations. And I work with investors all the time, right? Like, I work with real estate investors that are buying, $1 million properties in cash. And I also work with a person who's like, this is my first property and I'm going to live in it because I have to use my 5% down and that's all I have, or even FHA loan, I have to do 3.5%, So I work with this huge span of investors. And so I just would encourage everyone to keep their brain open to, like, really just get clear on what you want and how you can make that work, and, like, be open to maybe some open and willing to learn things that would be unconventional, maybe, but that would work for your particular situation. You know what I mean? Like, Amanda probably did things very different than the way that we did things, but, like, it worked for both, right? Like, the ending goal is, like, I would like to be here. And I think if you're very clear on how, like, what your situation is and, like, where you want to get to, it's a lot easier to put together, like, a plan for your particular situation. And going back to that, your particular situation better than anybody. So if you say, okay, I'm going to put $2,000 a month away for whatever, or Amanda, like, you probably had a number where you were like, okay, we have to put this amount away towards, like, this has to go to pay off this debt. And it doesn't, like, you your situation the best. And if you need help to formulate a plan, I think probably that's kind of why we're all together in this situation, right? Like, we have been in a lot of different situations and dealt with a lot of different types of people. So can kind of help you to figure out that pathway if you just can keep your brain open. And sometimes it's unconventional, but usually that's for a short period of time, to where you kind of bolster yourself and get to a spot where you can kind of get that momentum. So
exactly. And I think that's beautiful, and opening up to that new vision, because that's the hard part. I know, just on a personal note of validating what you're saying, I remember a few years ago, it was after my divorce, and I and had this sort of story or narrative that I didn't know how to do investments and I didn't know what was going on and I didn't know what, if I could ever do that, and that would be me, right? And then I'll share it later and more in detail, but one thing led to another, and some really wonderful people at key places gave me knowledge and then gave me opportunity and helped me to step right into something that the Lord had opened up for me, even though I was nervous. But because I opened up to that view of, I can change that story. That story is not my story and it's not true. And it changed my story. And that's why I feel all of us in a certain way have felt that. We are so passionate about helping women change that story, capture that vision. And that's why our tagline is, because you can. You really can. Every single person can do this. Rachel, do you want to quickly share your experience, your money wisdom?
Yeah, absolutely. And it kind of goes along with Amanda's and Amy's, my goodness. It's funny because like Amy was saying, like there's so many paths to get where you want to be, right? And they don't all need to look the same. And I kind of feel like for me, I was a little bit hesitant to jump into this realm because I felt like, who am I to just say that I can do this? Like, first of all, I don't have any background in this, and I don't have this and I don't have that. And, that was my narrative in my head. And also I'm a woman, like, I have a very successful husband. And when we meet people, it's always like, oh, what do you do? And where did you study? And, that kind of thing. So I was like, how do I even do this? So getting past that negative mindset, number one, I think is huge because we all have a different path. We all can do this. Like it absolutely we can. But my big tip is to start with the end in mind. So what is it that you want? What is it that you really want? And write that down and then go backwards, take the steps backwards to figure out how to get there. For us, we wrote all of this down. And it's funny because if you go back and you look at it, you're like, wait, you didn't follow any of the paths to get there. Like I'm serious. Like
that's how we work.
Exactly. And we have people right now saying to us, why, like my husband lives in Michigan. I am currently in Texas. This was not in our plan. Like, I don't want to be away from my husband. Just all these weird things happen. But I feel like when you put the end first and then you map out how you're going to get there, like Amy was saying, you need to be open to the different opportunities. You need to be open to the different growth that can come to you. And so by doing that, we have seen doors open that we just never thought possible. Opportunities come that we just never thought possible. Like Connie said, we just bought a cookie store. That just happened within a matter of a few weeks. And right in the middle of that, we had someone come and ask us to buy a soda shop. So in the month of July, we purchased 2 businesses. But it was because we had set that plan from the beginning. We had said, this is where we want to be. And we kept trying to go for that. And then once you're there, then you set another goal. So yeah, that's what I would say.
I love it. And like, I can't remember which one of you said that. It doesn't mean you're going to do it that way forever. It means that it's one step in the next thing and the next thing, and you get that learning, and then you go to the next thing and the next, and you get to build and build and build. And I think that's why partnering with the Lord in finances is especially important, because instead of just being like, is this a good plan? Okay, let's throw pasta on the wall and let's just go with it. That you are partnering with him to make that plan. And I love the things that you shared. We had not planned ahead what tip we were going to share. And I can't believe how it all flowed together so beautifully. Getting that root reason, taking out a piece of paper and saying, what do you want and what's stopping you? Making that 5-year plan, and then starting with the end in mind and saying, what is it exactly that we think, well, at least what we know, because you have some kind of vision in your mind of what you would like, and put that down. And then, as we say with Brother Jared, take those 16 stones and take them to the Lord. And then you'll find out in the actual doing, like they've all shared, and like I've experienced, it's, not A plus B equals C. It's a quadratic equation, right? You're like all over the map.
Yeah.
But there's a peace. There is a peace and a clarity. Even when it's uncertain, there's still this driver of peace and going into the unknown, cue the Frozen soundtrack. But there's this feel of, I'm on the right path, even if I don't know exactly where it's going or how we're going to get there, but I can feel it. And that, to me, is what makes you a powerful money investor, is when you partner with the Lord like that. You take the knowledge out of the best books and best people, and you marry it with divine law, and you take that and make that into a package of receiving personal revelation. And wow, watch out. And it will give you the courage and the confidence to try these new things, even when so much feels like is at stake. Absolutely have loved this. We are out of time. I love this. I wish we could go like 2 more hours and be in our pajamas, and it'd be so fantastic. But if you're feeling that way, yeah, exactly. If you're feeling that way listening to this, guess what? Good news. We're going to be doing this every week for a short period of time. So we're just going to be doing this on a Thursday, 11 to 11:30 MST, and we would love to hear your questions. So as you've been listening, if you have questions for us, or if you're like, yeah, I do want to learn how to talk to my kids about money, and well, how do I get started in investing? Whatever those questions are, post them below. Or if they're more of a personal nature, go ahead and DM, or you can email Connie@ConnieSokol.com, and you can send your question. And we will not say someone's name unless you're like, I don't care, it's fine. We will keep it anonymous. But we would love to answer your questions. These women have incredible life experience and professional experience in all of these money areas. And we also have mindset and mom in the trenches. So we have the whole package here that we all have one singular desire. And that is, through the Lord's help, to teach you about how you can take what you have and make it into more in his way and by his will. So I love y'all. Thank you so much. And join us next time for Mindset Money Mentors, because you can.